I'm hosting for the camera. Oh, it's a video? We are so excited. These are the gears right here.
I thought these are the brakes, and
you
then
do know how to ride a bike, right? Yeah,
I know how to not fall.
Is St. John's Church. I'm just going to give you a quick overview. St. John's Church is very historic, but St. John's Church also has Tiffany windows in it, in orange. Wow. In orange. Okay. All of this postcard breaks my heart. These are things that used to be in orange, but the most significant thing on here is, see this building right here? That's the Orange Music Hall. It is now easy pickings. Let me tell you, it rivaled Carnegie Hall. That's where the National Chrysanthemum Show was. The National, like USA, every year. Is the firehouse lost in the valley. The Orange Machine Company, which was one of the major manufacturer in America. This church still stands. It's across from Hat City Kitchen in the valley. This is Our Lady of the Valley Church. If you have never been in there, go. You think you're in Italy. It's beautiful, absolutely magnificent. Okay, Carteret School. This is on Carteret Street. It got torn down. This school was started by the Watson family. Who's the Watson family? The founders of IBM. Where did they live? Orange, New Jersey. This is the Beard School. The White House Nursing Home used to be the Beard School. It's now Morristown Beard. But this is one of the most famous girls' schools, private schools in America. Orange had the most exclusive private schools in the early 1900s. Dearborn Morgan School, Carteret, the Beard School, the German School. We were amazing. We still are. This is the brewery, Orange Brewery. We were famous for beer. We were famous for a lot of things, but beer was one of them. This was our brewery that got torn down. I don't know. This is the beginning of St. Mary's Hospital. If you see it, where they started to add on, but this was the house. This was owned by the Winter family. They made a donation of their home to start the hospital. The Winter family, they were the owners of Orange Brewery. This was the brewery. My dream for Orange Hospital, I don't know about, is to restore it. Okay, not to restore it to a hospital. Hospitals are something that towns can't maintain today. It's expensive. But this is, you know where Military Commons is? This is Military Commons. This is what it used to look like. Yeah, do I have the hotel up here? Military Commons used to be, it was really Doctors Row. A lot of doctors lived there, private schools were there. Okay, this is our library. If you don't know, our library was built by me, McKim, and White. What else did they do? Oh, Loeb Library at Columbia University, Empire State Building. And this was our main street, how it used to look. It could look that way again. This is our train station, which is on the National Register of Historic Places. And this is our City Hall. This is what it looked like before. City Hall was also the first school. That was our first high school. I have the attendance books, which are very interesting. When you look at the attendance books, say why the kid wasn't in school. The kid wasn't in school because they had to go milk the cows. We were a farm community. We really were. So that's, you know, a summary of the whole tour. But what I ask is that whatever neighborhood you live in, take pride in your neighborhood. Make it better in your neighborhood. Thank you so much.
Bleep, bleep. Check in. How are you doing?
Me? I'm great. I am happy to be participating. I feel like I'm getting a little bit of exercise.
River Run Street has restored their river, decorated, planted, bridges, whatever. I'm hoping that we're going to get ours together too. But anyway, the valley, that's from, oh, I'm sorry, see stone, that is Our Lady of the Valley Church.
Oh my god. My little chicken thighs is on fire. She set me up.
We're working in this factory that was right here. Grace Fryer, Edna Hussman, Catherine Schaub, Quinta McDonald, and Albina Latrice. Quinta McDonald is buried in Rosemont Cemetery right here. And they started working in this factory in 1917. When they built the factory, the guys who built it and ran it knew that radium was dangerous, but they told the girls it was perfectly safe. And the men who worked in the laboratories in the factory had lead aprons and hoods. The girls didn't have any of that. They were told they were painting luminous dials for watches, and they were told to lick the paintbrushes to get a nice sharp point on them to make the teeny little numbers on the dials. And they got all kinds of horrible cancers. It took them 2 years to find a lawyer who was willing to take the case. The company came up with all kinds of delaying tactics, was trying to claim that what the girls had was syphilis, which you do not get from radium, obviously. And in 1928, finally, the case was settled before a trial, and it was because of that litigation that they began developing any safety standards for handling these materials. What they took up when they tore the factory down was used as landfill throughout Essex County, Orange, East Orange, South Orange, Montclair. There were homes built on top of this, and it took a huge effort to get the site remediated. The mayor was telling me that this is probably the most expensive park in the state because they had to dig down really deep. Radium has a half-life of 1,600 years. That means it takes 1,600 years for half of the radioactivity in a sample to dissipate. So even Twinkies don't last that long.
Okay, got to the next slide now. Thank you.
Let's give Judy a nice round of applause.
I mean, most of us know this is St. John's. St. John's is known as the mother church of the Oranges because when Orange was one Orange, this was the only Catholic parish for several miles. You can imagine adding East Orange to West Orange to South Orange. That's a pretty big territory. The current church was dedicated in 1869, and it replaced a small wooden frame structure that was here before. It was constructed of locally quarried brownstone, which was donated by Mr. Llewellyn Haskell, who we know from the Llewellyn Park fame. Where the Llewellyn Park is now, that was a stone quarry, and that's where most of this and the other stone like it you see in Newark came from. The irony is that it doesn't last very well. If you see this church as well as some others down in the Newark area, it takes a beating as far as the weather. The architect was a guy by the name of Jeremiah O'Rourke, who was the architect of the Basilica of the Sacred Heart down in Newark. This church, several others in the area, Sacred Heart Bloomfield, the Seton Hall University Chapel, but his real claim to fame is he was the first official architect to be employed by the United States government responsible for designing post offices. As we were going westward expansion, that was his claim to fame. He was a civic architect, let's say, civil servant. So 1869, dedicated. The first person baptized here was the founder of A&P, the Huntington Hartford family, whose estate up until about 1945, 1950 used to be right across the street here, called Hilltop. And why Hilltop? Because this is the highest point between Manhattan and South Mountain, which you realize when you come down, if you ever come down the hill, this church looks like it's way higher than it really, appears to be when you're at this level. The steeple just towers over. It was modeled after a couple of precedents in England and Ireland. And the steeple, as we know it, wasn't completed until about 1880 or thereabouts, when they got a new pastor who was a convert, but from a wealthy Boston family. who liked to spend money and had money to spend. And what he did is he went to the Paris Exposition. He bought 8 bells, which are up in the tower now, and then commissioned another 3 from Ireland. I'm sorry, Italy. He commissioned, some of you might know, there's a theater on the top of the school here. He built the school and then built the theater, which is a small replica of a famous theater in Paris. How many of you have been to the Manor for dinner, lunch, brunch, lobster, all you can eat dinner? There's a large brass gasolier that hangs in the Manor as a chandelier now. That came out of this theater here. And this was the state headquarters for many years for the Knights of Columbus, hence Columbus Hall. We named the theater up top
That's
and the
where
school.
that was.
There you go. What you learned today. So, and on the top there was a statue of the risen Christ, which, if any of you are familiar with this part of Orange, we get strong wind shear up on this rise here. About maybe 5 or 6 years ago, the wind caught the statue and tipped it over. The statue was hollow.
Hurricane Sandy.
And Jesus hung at a 45-degree angle for about a year. Roof up there. I think he might still be resting on his back in the back.
No, he's in the garage.
He's in the garage. But that's not the first statue. If you look up right above us, you see those four evangelists on the tower? About 8 years ago, Luke, who's on this side, came down and right after school had let out, just missed the kids, and imploded right here. And so that's actually a replica of the one that was up there. But this church is full of Orange history. One of the best things about it is its strategic location to Edison Studios, and the fact that Thomas Edison's daughter converted to Catholicism when she got married, and this was her home parish. So there was a strong connection to the Edison family well up until like the late 60s, early 70s, when she was still a parishioner here. And in fact, we have it through her that her father oversaw, Thomas Edison, the installation of the original lighting system here, as well as the installation of the electric clock in the tower, which they're not allowed to use anymore because the Archdiocese is self-insured. And that doesn't meet code in any way, shape, or form. It still has the original insulators on the electrical wires from Thomas Edison's time in the late 20s. And then through Edison's connection at midnight mass for Christmas Eve, when, as some of you might know, the factory that's here, the Edison factory, was also the record and the gramophone factory. So Edison had arranged that for Christmas Eve mass, Metropolitan Opera stars who were under record or under contract for Edison Studios would sing Christmas Eve mass here. So Geraldine Farrar, Enrique Caruso were regulars at Christmas Eve and Easter Sunday. Because the acoustics here are also very good. He also did many recordings of cylinders and records inside the church here. They're not allowed to ring the bells anymore because of the structure. The tower is stable enough to stand, but not stable enough to take 11 bells ringing in a carillon every 15 minutes up in the tower there. And also, if you ever get a chance to go in, the altar has an intricately carved Narrators, which is back wall, which was also bought at the Paris Exposition, and it arrived off the ship with no instructions on how to put it together. So it sat on the property in the other garage for about 5 or 6 years until one of the maintenance men decided to take a deep breath and take a crack at it. And but it's really a tour de force. It has life-size carvings of angels and statues. So I'm being told to wrap it up.
Just tell us what you do.
What I do?
But talk about the Tiffany windows. There are Tiffany stained glass windows in this church. Oh, sorry.
They can come back. Yeah, you guys can come back. So what I do is I'm a preservation architect. I chair the Historic Commission with Karen. And, as he's saying, you guys have to keep going, but there's lots of history here. So do come back. The church has 2 masses on Sunday, so therefore it's open pretty much all through Sunday. The school is now closed, but it's worth walking around on the inside. There's many original things still there.
You restored 2 houses, South Ward?
2 houses, South Ward. It's a labor of love. That's why I look tired most of the time. And that's what we do. So enjoy. Welcome. Have a good rest of the day.
At that time, Orange was a part of North. Orange was not a separate municipality as it is now. In terms of the church, It settled here after building it, and it adopted a new name, the Second Presbyterian Church of Newark. And if you know Newark, you know that there are a couple of Presbyterian churches there, including the Greater Presbyterian and the First Presbyterian. In 1811, it changed its name to the Orange Presbyterian Church. In 1832, because most of the members had relocated to other parts of what we now know as Essex County, or at that time it was called Distant Orange, it became necessary to form a new church. So this church has a very long history of being involved in the community and especially providing services to the residents, and particularly to the young residents. When it was established in 1719, it was established by immigrants from Connecticut. People moved from Connecticut to here, and they settled in Newark under the Nathan Wheeler, who was the founder of both that city and of the congregation and the burial ground over there. Now, I know the ministers want to take you on a tour of the facilities. Don't let them take you on the long tour, because you can get lost in this building.
I don't think Keith's gonna let us do that, though.
Well, he better speak up.
Okay.
Please, big round of applause for Janice Morrell.
How many people you fit here?
We can still go to 1,200.
Wow.
The pulpit was redone. It was different. Yes, it was different. We did. You see 500 downstairs? Downstairs close to 800 downstairs. The balcony for the 300 close to 400. We have a baptistry that we put here for baptism service. It's over here. Nice pool. We just open it up and we can do baptism. In case anyone interested. We have a historical organ behind there. This organ was placed with these pipes in there. It works. But they asked us about 60-something thousand just to restore it. When you do test it, you can be anywhere on Main Street, you will hear it because it's so loud. It was made to let the people in the community know that service started. Because there's a big bell also. The concerts, we have 2 annual concerts that we do, one for Christmas, one for Easter. Those 2 concerts, it's always packed. Get well. Nice people right now.
Give a big hand, please, bro.
Hold the red down for you. Pretty cool, right?
Even when we have special programs, some of our special guests, we usually bring them upstairs. At least there's a better view. You have a sense of control
It certainly
of the whole room. So it's very nice in concert when you sit upstairs because you got the whole stage in front of you here.
Good leg room too.
Like, the only thing we change is the cushions. They're new. Personal. Yes. All right, over here is the chapel. It can fit, they said it can fit 200. but mostly our prayer room. That's what we use it for, but we do a lot of meetings here. Plus we have a Spanish church that worship with us here, and this is where they do the Thursday night service. The children's service on Sunday morning used to be right here before COVID-19.
Lord, smells good, boy. This is 50th party that built that, huh? Good job. Well deserved, Pastor. Well deserved. Well deserved, Pastor. Well deserved.
Can I take a shower really fast? I've been riding a bike all day.
Nice, nice. Very nice. Well deserved. Well deserved.
The same time we just put down. No, this is like real marble.
You heard what she said? She said, no, it ain't. This is real marble.
Oh, excuse me.
That's what she said.
Excuse me.
My kids be getting me like that. Come on, man.
This is known as Military Park in Orange. It's actually the entrance to our town. One street back that way is East Orange. This was known as Doctors Row. Most of these homes belong to doctors. You've got Cotton Funeral Home down there, which is famous. Let me tell you something about the house right next to Cotton Funeral Home. As you pass by and look at it, that house belonged to one of the survivors of the Titanic. There is a bowling alley in the basement of that house. The houses were magnificent. Dearborn Morgan School, right, used to be right across the street. There's the church that George Bush's great-great-grandfather built. That's on the National Register of Historic Places. There was a gazebo here. It was William Howard Taft, when he was president in 1912, he spoke to our town from that gazebo. Okay, if you look down to on the left where you see Orange Commons, that used to be what is known as North Orange Baptist Church. Think cathedral. It was a cathedral, and somehow it got torn down and they built Orange Commons. That's all I have to say about that. I can't say nothing else about that. And go. The statue that we have here has been here for a while. So when we were divided between Orange and East Orange, this is where the dividing line was, and this became Orange, and this is our main street. But over here were hotels, the Plaza Hotel, other hotels where stars stayed, because further down our main street at the Embassy Theater, which was like the Hollywood Walk of Fame, so many stars were there, and they stayed in the hotels here. When President Reagan, he wasn't president at the time, but when he was an actor in the 40s, he stayed right over here in the Plaza Hotel. Nobody has a better main street than us. Nobody. And we just need to restore it. That's right. But see this house right here? I have the plans for this house. This house was built by an architect, and the plans are in the Library of Congress. I just found them. The brewery was further down. Right, it was further down Prince Street. There's still some remnants of it left.
I was just asking Karen, would she entertain any questions anyone might have about our history, about the tour, about anything that she brought up?
There used to be a trolley that ran from West Orange all the way to Newark. When I was little, the trolley tracks were still in the middle of the street here, as well as the wires. And the street was cobblestone. It wasn't paved like this.
In fact, a lot of our streets, the cobblestones are still under here. They paved right over. On Main Street, on the right, there's a big red building, the Masonic Temple. It's the Union Masonic Temple. For anybody that's a Mason, would know this. It's the first Masonic temple of that size on the Eastern Seaboard. The first, right here in Orange. And it's also the first Masonic lodge where there were Caucasian Masons there, and they let African Americans have one of the floors in there so they could have their Masonic lodge, part of the Prince Hall Masons. Orange Main Street used to be lined with cherry trees on both sides. That's how we had the postcards. First Presbyterian Church. They came here.
thank everyone for coming. Karen, thank you for the history lesson. Thank you for being involved. And Karen is good about expressing herself and her opinion.